All right, hello and welcome everybody to KBO Chats Live. I'm Sam Pasco alongside Erik Halterman, and we are breaking down the entire 5-game KBO slate for you to make your picks, DFS lineups, or just to follow the league. It's a great league. Be sure to check it out using rotowire.com/free KBO. We have some great resources there. This is our that's our standings. We have player news. It's the best way to follow up on the league, on your favorite players, and to stay updated on everything KBO. So let's dive right into the show, going to our standings page, looking at the teams here. Still just a couple weeks into the season, but the biggest thing that's standing out here is the Kiwoom Heroes at number 10, the first team to double-digit anything, wins or losses or ties. They were a playoff team last year, but they did lose Ha-Seong Kim. Erik, how surprising is it to see the Heroes at number 10 on this list after they made the playoffs last season?
Yeah, I mean, still very early, and they're only, 3 games out of the playoffs with, 130-something to go, 129 to go. So I wouldn't be too worried yet, but it's a little bit strange. I think their pitching has not been great at all. They have faced some good teams. They've lost 6 in a row, but 5 of those were against the Twins and Wiz. You'd like to do a little bit more than that, but it could just be one blip, and we could completely forget about this in a few weeks, but it's definitely worth watching.
Yes, definitely a storyline to keep track of as we welcome in some viewers into the show here. Be sure to comment everything. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, everything into the chat. We will be answering those as we go along. Last thing to take a look at the standings here is a runs per game. We can sort here by runs scored per game. And when we do that, we see the Dinos, of course, at number 1, but we see the Lotte Giants at number 2. There's something we talked about last week, Erik. They were shut out twice last week by the Lions, but they scored a 10 on Doosan yesterday, who actually, according to runs allowed per game, have the best pitching staff. So are we considering the Lotte Giants as an offensive juggernaut as of right now?
I'd like to see them do it for a few more weeks, but it's interesting that they're scoring so many when Asap San is actually struggling. He was probably their best hitter last year, nearly won the batting title. And he's, I think, their weakest hitting regular. I think it's just a case of everybody having a couple good weeks. They are deep in decent hitters, but a little bit shallow on true top-tier hitters. And it just looks to me like a bunch of those decent hitters are, playing towards the top end of their projections for the first couple weeks. So if they keep it up, that's a playoff team, but they'll have to do it, I think, for a little bit longer before I really change my opinion of them.
Indeed. So let's dive on now into our KBO daily lineups with our first game, 5 a.m. Eastern, the SSG Landers against the Samsung Lions. The Landers won in the opener of this series 10-7 yesterday. It was 24 hits combined in that game. Not sure if we'll see the same thing tonight if we have David Buchanan anything like he was in his last start. 2 hits, Erik, 2 hits in a shutout, 11 strikeouts. Is this going to be the guy to watch in this game if he's on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's an interesting guy. He had a pretty low ERA last year, 3.45, but it came with a slightly below average strikeout rate, which suggested to me he was getting a bit lucky. But suddenly this year, he's striking out everybody. I think he's tied for the league lead with 25 strikeouts, strikeout rate over 30% through 3 starts. He's just not a strikeout guy in the past, but if he's starting to strike out guys and he already was finding ways to keep runs off the board in other ways, we could be looking at a guy who's, one of the top 5, top 10 starters in the league. I think last year he was more of a totally solid, but not quite elite foreign starter. But if he's, keeps this up for a little bit longer, granted it was against the Eagles last time, and it's against the Landers lineup today that ranks 9th in scoring this year, same spot they were in last year. So even a good outing here isn't enough to anoint him, the next Dan Straley, but it certainly couldn't have started much better.
Yes, definitely off to a great start in our 2021 season. Turning our attention to the other pitcher in this game, Jeon-Wook Lee. He has some command issues, to put it lightly, some big walk issues, 11 walks in just 6 innings pitched this year, but somehow limited to NC just to 2 hits and 1 earned run and 3 innings pitched in his last game. What do we make of Lee in this matchup against the Lions?
Well, it's hard to give up a hit when the guy's already standing on first base. I think that might have been part of the reason why his hit total was down. Not a lot to like about Lee. He didn't get his chance to become a regular until he was 25 last year. This is in a league where you often see good players debut at 18. ERA in the mid-5s last season. nearly walked as many guys as he struck out. I think just 10 more strikeouts than walks last year, and it's 2 strikeouts against 11 walks this season. Couldn't have started much worse, and not a whole lot of reason to believe he's about to turn things around. So it's probably easily the most lopsided pitching matchup on this slate, I think.
Indeed, especially when you look at what Buchanan did in his last start. Turning our attention now to the offense in this game, Jawu, batting average king right now. If the season ended, Samsung has scored at 26 runs in their last 3 games. This game saw 17 runs yesterday. We're gonna lean towards the Lions on that offense.
Yeah, definitely strong lean towards the Lions, given the big gap between the pitchers. Lions have a okay lineup normally, but we are playing in the most hitter-friendly park of the league here. Jawu-Ku's been incredibly hot. Yeah, leads the league in batting average, like you said, OPS over 1,200. He's been good for several years, but if he stays this good, that would be an entirely new level for him. So something worth watching, and he's got decent talent around him. Jose Perella, I think, has been one of the better new foreign hitters. Hasn't been elite, but he's hit several homers the last couple games, so giving them a little bit more depth after they didn't get a ton from their foreign hitters last year.
Indeed. Now let's go to our picks here. The total is set at 10. The Lions are, of course, big favorites. We're going to go with them. What's the pick?
Yeah, definitely Lions. That's definitely correct that they're huge favorites given the gap in pitching. The over-under is a little bit tricky just because Buchanan's been so good. But I think I just have absolutely zero faith in Lee. The Lions might have to put up, 8 of these runs themselves, given how good Buchanan's been. But when you factor in that hitter-friendly home park, I think I'm going to lean over.
So we got over 10 runs and the Lions on this matchup here. All right, moving on to our next game. We got the Kiwoom Heroes and the Hanwha Eagles. I saw we got a comment here about the Heroes having a tough time, and they are having one right now in a major skid. They lost 7-3 yesterday in this matchup. 6-game losing streak, just 3.3 runs per game over that streak. I'd imagine that maybe their fortunes can be reversed in this one with Joker on the mound, but he did implode in the 6th inning in his last start for an uncharacteristically bad stat line. Are we going with the Heroes here, even though they are cold?
Yeah, I mean, it's Erik Jokic. If they're going to ever break out of this slump, it pretty much has to be today. Jokic against the Eagles shouldn't be too difficult of a one here. And Jokic, outside of that one bad inning last start, I believe he's only given up 1 run all year. So very much on pace for a similar season he had last year, which, of course, would make him arguably the best starter in the league. He led the league, led all qualified starters in ERA last year. His whip, I think, was 4th. He just never walks anybody and strikes out an average to slightly above average number of batters. So he does everything right. He's facing a pretty weak lineup here, although it's worth noting the Eagles have been okay on offense. Siwon Rowe in particular, I think he's tied for the league lead with 18 RBI. It's a bunch of homers, but he's somebody who had a OPS under 700 last year. He is young, so maybe this is the breakout season, but it would be hard for me to see somebody breaking out from a 686 OPS to becoming one of the true stars of the league. So there's a chance the Eagles show more than they showed last year, but I don't think they're going to show enough to put up many off Jokic here.
Yes, and turning our attention to the Eagles starter, Min-Woo Kim. Strong start to the season, can I say? Decent ERA, under 4, 5 innings or more in all 3 of his games so far. And he did strike out 7 in his second matchup of the year against Doosan 2 starts ago. So, I mean, maybe is there a chance that the Heroes continue their skid 2-7? Is Kim decent enough to maybe make you worry about that?
Yeah, if it wasn't Jokic on the mound, there's a decent chance I'd actually pick the upset here. Because Kim he does have something. He struck out over 22% last year. Or sorry, just shy of 21% last year. But he walked 12% of batters. So it just had some serious control issues. Both the strikeouts and walks are down in the early going this year. But, hey, if he could get the strikeouts back and not start walking guys again, that's the recipe for a breakout year. And he is still fairly young in his mid-20s. So there's at least something there. I don't think that something is much more than a mid-rotation starter. And I don't think I'm even confident that he is that yet. But it's enough that, if Jokic has a bad day, I think this is closer than people might think, given how good Jokic is. But I'm still sticking with Jokic here.
All right. So I'd imagine you would then, of course, take the Heroes here. The total is set at 8 runs, very low. Eagles have scored 18 in their last 2 games. I don't know if that changes anything, but total set at 8 with the Heroes as the favorites. Where are we going?
Yeah, definite Heroes. Just got to have faith in Jokic. And that lineup is not a bad lineup, even if they haven't had many runs yet this season. It's a very low over-under. They did make it tough, but I'm going to have faith in Jokic and stick with the under here, especially because I think Kim is going to do his part to keep that number down.
We're going under 8 and the KBO Heroes on this game. There we go. Moving right along, we now have the Deucin Bears and the Lotte Giants matchup here. Lotte won yesterday, 10-5, a lot of runs in that one. Might be even higher with these 2 pitchers on the mound. You see right away, ugly ERA is never a good sign. But both these pitchers both have more earned runs than innings pitched on the year, and both haven't gone longer than 5 innings pitched in any game this year. Maybe you favor Kim a little bit here because of those strikeout numbers, but I imagine this could just turn into a slugfest.
Yeah, it's not often you see the 2 ERAs adding up to 25. It's the first time I can remember seeing that one. It's 2 guys on completely opposite ends of their careers, too. Hee-Kwan Yu for the Bears, veteran, 34 years old, I believe. He's trying to find the slowest you can throw while still being a professional pitcher, and he may have found it. He's also trying to find the lower limit of the viable number of strikeouts. He was at below 10% last year, 9% strikeout rate, and still had a respectable-ish ERA of 5.02. Strikeout rate has fallen this year, is down to 6.1%. I think that's 2 strikeouts so far all season. And you're just not going to get guys out if you strike out none of them. I mean, there is an archetype of pitcher who doesn't strike out many guys, manages contact, but you got to get at least some. And when everybody can hit the ball off you, you're going to give up a lot of runs. So I don't see any reason to believe that in his age 34 season, he's suddenly going to, start throwing harder, start putting guys away. I think he's found the lower limit of that archetype, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's out of the rotation by the end of the year if things stay at all similar to this.
Yes, definitely not a good thing he is facing the Lotte Giants lineup, who, like we mentioned in the beginning, do rank 2nd in runs scored per game right now. Deucin, their offense isn't too shabby, 17 runs in their last 3 games. It was interesting. In this game, we had 21 total hits yesterday, but no players had more than 2 hits. We had 6 players with 2 hits, but no one with 3 hits. Anyone standing out from this lineup, or are we just going to kind of see hits up and down 1 through 9?
Komu Park for the Bears is the guy who's having a hot season to start. Jose Fernandez has been fine, as has Jaewon Kim, but neither of them is the true star they're supposed to be. It's actually been Park who's leading the team. He's got an OPS over 1,000. He's one of only 2 players, along with Jawook Koo, to be hitting 400 still. So he's very capable of being at least, number 2, number 3 option in a lineup. He's been the number 1 so far, and they have enough talent in those other guys to make up for it when he falls off a bit. So I'd be very happy to stack some Bears, especially the right-handed Bears like Park against Kim. Kim was the first overall pick in the normal version of the draft last year, and that means the Giants clearly think he's got a future. He actually beat last year's Rookie of the Year, Hyunjun So, for an award in 2019 as the top amateur. So at least 2 years ago, he was better than a guy who was really quite good for the Wiz last season. So there's definitely something there, but he just hasn't come close to showing any signs of that yet. I think more walks than strikeouts through 2 starts. Just nothing close to good. Walking way too many people, 11 earned runs in 8.2 innings. We might check it back on him in a couple months, and he'll be somebody who's interesting, but he's got to have at least 1 good game before I think he's going to silence these Bears bats.
Indeed, not looking good for either of these pitchers right now, and people in the chat here are going against you, not you, Erik, but of course against the pitcher. What are we thinking here? 11 runs. I don't know if that is high enough if both these pitchers are bad. Lotte Giants are favored here. Where are we going?
Yeah, I think the over-under is the easier part of this. I'm going to go over. I think, as you said, that's not high enough for 2 guys whose ERA combines for 25. You could go either way. I'm kind of surprised to see the Giants favored. I think the Bears, I'm going to go with the Bears. I just think a better lineup, even though they lost a couple pieces. Haven't shown it yet this year, but I don't think the Giants didn't really add any notable names, and they were a pretty unremarkable lineup last season. It is worth noting the Giants are very right-handed, so if that pushes you towards them against the left-handed you could go that way. I'm going to stick Bears, but I think it's quite close.
All right, moving on now to the fourth game here. We have the KT Wiz taking on the NC Dinos. KT won yesterday 5-2. I would think you'd have to give the slight advantage here because KT has William Cuevas on the bump. 4.5 ERA isn't great, but did fine in his last start. 4 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, and 4 strikeouts against just 2 walks. Are we thinking Wiz here because of that with Cuevas starting for them?
Yeah, that is the direction I'm going to go. Cuevas was more good than great last year. Definitely not one of the better foreign starters in the league, but somebody who I'm not surprised that they brought back. He was adequate. 4.10 ERA, nothing special, but gets the job done. Didn't strike out a ton of guys, didn't walk a ton either. So he gets the job done well. His last start was actually his first start of the year because he was battling a back issue to start the season. He only threw 4 innings, like you said. He did get up to 74 pitches, and the general rule is you add 15 to 20 between starts. So I think I'd be very surprised if he threw 100 pitches in this one, but I think he can get him 90. I think that should be enough, given that they've got enough decent bats. And they're facing Youngkyu Kim, who just hasn't shown enough. He did have some decent underlying numbers last year to go with his 5.45 ERA, an 18% strikeout rate against just a 4.6% walk rate. That potentially suggested better things for the future, but those better things haven't shown any sign of arriving so far this season. 2 very poor starts, 6 strikeouts against 6 walks, 6 earned runs in just 6.2 frames. It's a lot of 6s, not generally in the right places. So I think there's a chance he ends up okay at some point this season, but with the way his season started and the fact that he's never actually produced results, even though he had decent underlying numbers, just not there yet for me. Still too young, I think, to be somebody I'd be happy relying on.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. A very young pitcher and has had an ERA over 5 in his past 2 seasons. So nothing really to trust right there. One thing you normally can trust is that NC Dinos offense. They are the only team scoring 6 runs per game this season, but they are a little cold right now, averaging just 2.5 over their last 2 games, managed just 5 hits yesterday. Are we worried about the Dinos offense, especially facing up against Cuevas, who should be building some momentum now in his second start?
Yeah, not at all worried long term. Aaron Altair is having his Erik Thames turn this season. He's absolutely crushing the ball, leading the league with 8 homers. Nobody else has more than 5. 1201 OPS. And Yuji Yang is doing everything he's supposed to do. OPS over 1,000, tied for the league lead in RBI. Sungbum Na, I don't think has been quite elite yet, but he's still a great hitter. They've had some minor injuries to some secondary guys. Minwoo Park missed a game with a minor back issue. Jinsung Gang battling a foot issue. So they are perhaps losing some of those second guys, and they don't have the best matchup here. But I don't think Cuevas is anybody too intimidating for daily fantasy purposes. I think he's somebody you can still use the Dinos' best bats against.
Indeed, here we got Jamie calling Cuevas a fake ace. So we'll see what happens there. Taking a look now at the odds, the Dinos are the favorite. 10.5 is the total. This one might be spot on. Where are you going, Erik?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Wiz. I think the gap in the pitching is, even though I don't love Cuevas, I think it's still a big enough gap in the pitching. And I'm going to go over. I think that's a pretty good number at 10.5 there. But I don't think Kim for the Dinos is going to keep runs off the board well at all. And I think the Dinos have a good enough lineup that I don't think Cuevas is going to shut them down. I think the Wiz will be happy if he, holds them to 3 over 5 innings.
All right, we're going with the KT Wiz in the over 10 runs there on this game. Moving into the final game on the 5-game slate. Always great having the 5 games in the 10-team league. That is a KBO. Last one here is the Kia Tigers against the LG Twins. Kia won yesterday 6-3. Kia surprisingly 1 game out of first. I know it doesn't mean much because we are still very early in the season. Be sure to check out rotowire.com/free KBO to access the standings and all our great tools available. But we do see Kia is just one game out of first. Kind of an unusual pitching matchup, if you will. I don't know what to make of Kim, and I believe Ham was okay for the Bears, but this is a little unusual one here.
Yeah, Houston Kim for the Tigers. He's a young 21-year-old. He last pitched in 2018. He did his mandatory military service that pretty much everybody in South Korea has to do unless they win. I think it's an Olympic medal or an Asian Games medal, something like that. He hasn't done either, so he had to be away from the team, and then he also had Tommy John surgery. So it's been a long time since he's pitched at all. And he didn't pitch at all well, just 10 appearances as an 18-year-old rookie. Showed next to nothing. I don't think we can take a ton away from 10 appearances 3 years ago, but we can at least say there's no track record of success there. So no reason to believe he'll be all that much this season. We'll see after a few more starts, but I'm certainly not thinking he's somebody who can hold the Twins' best bats down. And then Duck Ju Ham on the other side, he was mostly a reliever for the Bears, the local rivals of the Twins last season. I moved to the rotation late for 6 starts when the team had some injuries and just some underperformance. And he was fine. His ERA did rise. It was 3.60 as a reliever and then 4.26 as a starter. You'd expect that kind of thing. But that means that his numbers in recent seasons as a reliever don't necessarily totally reflect who he is. He's also not been pitching at all deep into games. He has 1 relief appearance and then 2 3-inning starts this season. So he's kind of somewhere in between an opener and a true starter. I think he did get up to close to 80 pitches in one of them, but I don't think the Twins intend for him to throw 6-7 innings in this one.
Yes, definitely not aces in this one. Put it nicely. In terms of the offense here, Kia's about middle of the pack, 11 runs in their last 3 games. Is Preston Tucker due for a home run? We talked about him being streaky. He has yet to go deep in this season. What do we like about this Tigers lineup?
Yeah, I actually recommended both Preston Tucker and Roberto Ramos on my DFS cheat sheet, precisely because they've been so bad that their prices have really dropped. You're not going to get them this cheap. I mean, they're priced as just middle-of-the-pack starters rather than the stars we expected them to be. They're both facing against lefties, but I don't think either lefty is going to stick in the game very long. It's a risk to select both of them because they've been bad. Tucker's been worse. Tucker's got an OPS under 500. Ramos is at 676, which is still nowhere near what we expect from him. So it's 2 guys where if you think they can turn it around, this is the best time ever, I think, to pick them up because you never can get them remotely this cheap. But the fact that both of them have struggled, I think, is part of the reason why their respective lineups aren't doing much at all.
Indeed, LG has lost 3 in a row now to 6 total runs in the last 4 games. So definitely not looking like the league-leading LG Twins that they are technically tied for first in the league right now. In terms of the pick here, where are we going? The last game on the slate is set at 9.5, with the Twins being the favorite.
Yeah, we're going to go over to unreliable starters who probably won't pitch that deep. I think it was pointed out in the chat that Kim does have decent stats in the Futures League, but, that's, 2 Futures League starts. And not enough of a resume for me to think he's going to shut out the Twins here. So I'm going to still go over. And I'm going to side Twins. I think they've got a better lineup. I think they have more depth beyond just their struggling foreign hitter. And I think Duck Ju Ham is a fine pitcher, even if he's not that great as a starter and probably won't go that deep. I think I've got more faith in him than somebody who hasn't pitched since 2018.
Indeed, and that is all 5 games on the slate. We have a question here before we get to our top 3 picks. That is from Sarah asking about Minwoo Park playing tonight.
Yeah, it was a minor traffic accident. It seemed like just a fender bender, though. They said back pain. He was placed on the injured list, but KBO's injured list, I believe, is different than MLB's, and where it doesn't mean he's locked into a certain length stay. So hard to say. It doesn't sound like a serious thing. There's no trauma or major injury is what Google Translate is telling me, but there's muscle tension. So it sounds like a minor thing. I don't know if he's back yet, but thank you for the reminder. Should probably take him out of the expected lineup just in case. I think it seems close to a 50-50 thing. I haven't seen an update since then.
Indeed, be sure to check out rotowire.com/freekbo for all the player news here. We have it all on the latest right here. Okay, top 3 picks, Erik. Where are you going for the total or for teams? Where are we going?
Well, top 1, I think by a long way, is going to be David Buchanan and the Lions over Gyeonwook Lee.
Indeed.
There's no pitcher gap anywhere close to that on this slate, so they're going to be number 1 there. Number 2 for me, I'm going to go Erik Jokic. Even though I think, like I mentioned, Minwoo Kim is not bad. This is closer than you might think, given that it's Jokic against the Eagles, but it's still Jokic against the Eagles, so I'm going to put them as number 2. And number 3, I think I'm going to go with a lot of runs in that Bears-Giants game. Again, you just don't see combined ERAs of 25. And while I don't think those guys are going to end up combining for a 25 ERA, I don't see any reason to believe they're going to have good ERAs this season. And 2 decent enough lineups that I think they should score plenty here.
All right, those are our top 3 picks for tonight. The Lions over the Landers, the Heroes over the Eagles, even though the Heroes are on a bit of a skid right now, and a lot of offense, a lot of firepower in that Bears-Giants game. And that is all we got for you guys tonight. Thank you for tuning in to KBO Chats Live. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates for our next show, potentially Monday or Tuesday. We will let you know on Twitter. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody.